今晚要干嘛？宵夜镜来讲。今天晚上我的来宾，好，他其实每一次我这样邀请他，他都有点害羞哦。就是那个来自英国的大帅哥，他是 IPAC 对中政策跨国议会联盟 IPAC 的共同创办人暨执行董事裴伦德Luke de Pulford。在今天的访问当中，我们会聊到很多关于他这个组织想要推动哪些议程，以及台湾啊、中国相关的问题。那可能最让我印象深刻的是，在台湾，我们很多人都知道，我们去中国不安全。无论是我们在电视上看到说中国有以下几个这样子的人权的 violations， 不光彩的记录。同时，我们也担心说，你和在看节目的你跟我们可能都在各自的社交软体上，也许脸书，也许脆上，有过一些阐述我们立场的发言。我自己知道，是我这辈子在现在这个中国共产党统治之下的中国，我这辈子是绝对不可能再去一次了。或者说，我们台湾人比较就可怜啊，去中国还要担心被抓。我没有想到的是，连 Luke 他也怕被抓，这让我非常压抑。一个来自英国 United Kingdom 的国会议员，对于中国有时候也有强大的好，我不要讲无力感好，他可能会觉得是无力感，但是他为自己的安全，他觉得他去中国，他们可能没有办法保障他自己的安全，那这会连带影响到他的家人，他在英国的家人，还有朋友，以及他所推动的志业。一起来锁定今天的宵夜镜来讲。So last year, Vice President Kim delivered a speech at the European Parliament, and that's an event widely seen as a major diplomatic breakthrough for Taiwan. And IPAC played a key role in making that happen. You've previously revealed that many of the parliamentarians in attendance didn't actually know that Vice President Xia herself would be speaking until the moment she actually physically walked into that room.
That's right, yeah.
That's just, I don't understand how that works. How is that possible?
The issue was security. It was always going to be security around this. Remember that when she visited Prague, widely reported now, before she became VP, there was a planned kinetic attempt on her life. We couldn't take any chances around any of that. Not only that, we knew that the more noise there was about this and the more people who knew about it, the more likely it would be that Beijing would try to disrupt it. And they tried to disrupt it anyway, but we didn't want to increase that.
Of course.
So we kept it extremely quiet from everybody in the assembly until it actually happened. We did advertise that it was a special guest. Nobody guessed it was her, which was quite funny. So then she comes in and everyone's like, whoa. So yeah, I mean, the practicalities of keeping that quiet, relatively simple. Not so simple when you involve a lot of government agencies, which had to be involved in order to pull that thing off, because you don't know who they're talking to.
Right.
But we did okay. You know, we kept a lid on it. Certainly when it came to IPAC's own communications, we were very solid.
I guess, would you say that you were lucky or it was a deserved outcome?
I wouldn't say we were lucky because there is no reason that it shouldn't happen.
Right.
The fact that it nearly didn't happen would be the more worrying thing for me, you know.
And once the event was actually over, did Beijing respond in ways that surprised you?
I think that the coercion that Taiwan has suffered, both with the president's visit to Eswatini, with the closing down of RightsCon, with the threatening of lawmakers around the world, I think all of that is due to Brussels.
Really?
Yeah.
What about the IPAC? What about IPAC members? Do they receive any kind of, coercion, harassment, threats from China after that speech?
Yes. Before and after, because I think Beijing got wind of it. They knew it was going to happen.
Okay.
So they tried, as they always do, to contact our members to tell them to stay away, that kind of thing. No one ever listens to that, except in some countries which are very economically exposed. And this is kind of too much detail, but for a lot of African politicians, in order to travel, they have to get permission. And permission is very easily denied.
Right.
So if you've got a Ministry of Foreign Affairs which is like super close to China and decides that it doesn't want you to go to an IPAC summit, then it can stop you from going. And that has happened to us quite a bit. But to your question, and I think that this is a good one to be able to tell your audience, there are politicians around the world who, for the sake of standing up for Taiwan, get hammered all the time by Beijing. They threaten them, they threaten their party leaders, they try to coerce them, they use whatever leverage they can. This is happening all the time. In the past 2 months in Latin America, there are at least 10 in I think 4 different countries attempts to coerce our members because of work they're doing on Taiwan. We lost 4 countries out of IPAC because of Taiwan.
Which 4?
Solomon Islands, Malawi, the Gambia, and Zambia.
Okay.
In every case when they were threatening them, okay, so let's look at Malawi. Malawi was before the Brussels summit. It was our Taiwan summit, it's our Taipei summit in 2024. So we announced that Malawi had joined at that summit, August 2024. Within a month, the presidential office in Malawi hears from the Chinese who say, unless you get these guys to leave that network, we will cancel the presidential visit from Malawi to China. Like, what are you going to do if you're a politician who comes from a place of
less strict
party discipline and really exposed to China? What are you going to do? Of course you're going to leave. They had no choice, and I don't blame them for doing it. But we lost them as a result of that. But they wrote us a letter which was clearly dictated to them by the Chinese embassy, because there was a whole paragraph in it about the one China principle, blah, blah, blah. You know. So it's good for your audience to know, because there are politicians who are taking a stand, who are doing the right thing, who are trying to stand by Taiwan, but they get hurt for it. They do.
It's very disheartening to hear that they had to remove themselves because of how exposed they were to China, I guess economically and maybe politically. Speaking of doing the right thing, your name, we talked about that infamous case in Hong Kong. Your name was listed as a co-conspirator in Jimmy Lai's trial.
Yeah.
When you found out that you were listed as a co-conspirator, what was your reaction? Did you laugh it off, or was there a moment where you realized just how far Beijing was willing to go?
I love this question, because a lot of the time when people get sanctioned and stuff like this happens, they say, it's a badge of honor. And I don't have that reaction. I think it's just sad. I think it's a sorry state of affairs that China has to be ruled by a party like this, and that the only way that they can deal with their deep insecurities and desperation for control is to victimize foreigners in that way, in these bizarre, spurious namings and cases, or through sanctions. The Jimmy Lai stuff is, like, I can't overstate how ludicrous it is. So I barely know Jimmy Lai. I'd love to know him better. I had dinner with him twice. Other people there every time. And I got his number and exchanged a few texts. And my texts were pretty much always me sending him a press release, when I was like sending a press release to lots of other people, saying, hey, do something with this press release. Anyway, in his trial, all of this stuff is being read out, and the prosecution are like, this is the really terrible material here, which really shows how deeply embedded you were in IPAC. And I'm like, Jimmy Lai had nothing, not a thing to do with IPAC, nothing at all. You know, most of the time he didn't respond to my messages. There was one where I said, please RT, and he responds, what's RT?
Yeah, what is RT?
Retweet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's like, what's RT? And I'm like, it's retweet. And this is being read out in court. This is how completely mad the Hong Kong situation is. So there's a part of me that wants to laugh it off, and there's a part of me that wants to go like, oh, you know.
Badge of honor.
Badge of honor. But the reality is, it's extremely sad. You know, unless things change, Jimmy Lai will die in jail. He hasn't done anything wrong. We have been used as spurious accomplices in all of that. The saddest part of the story for me is that in order to try to pin IPAC on Jimmy, they had to use a guy called Andy Lee, who you might not have heard of, but he was one of the 12 Hong Kongers who tried to escape to Taiwan. They caught that boat in Chinese waters, took them to Shenzhen, and Andy was mistreated in prison there.
They confiscated all his belongings, including his phone, and they mistreated him. Mistreating being, please use your imagination. I've heard you mention his name in one of the podcast interviews that you did. Do you know where he is right now?
Yeah, he's in prison in Hong Kong. I find this difficult to talk about because I feel so sad for Andy. What happened to him was completely unfair. and awful. You've got to imagine, like, there were some other people in that boat who may have actually done things wrong, or at least that other people would look at and understand in the context of resistance. But Andy was completely non-violent. All he ever did was try to encourage others, gave his time to everybody. He ended up, it seems, suffering worse than anybody in prison because of his association with international groups. And what they did with Andy is they tried to get him to become, well, he was a prosecution witness for Jimmy Lai. And it's just like, it's all made up. Like, so they also named my colleague, my Japan director, Shiori Kano. Shiori never ever met Jimmy Lai, ever. They also named Bill Browder. Bill Browder had never even heard of Jimmy Lai and then gets named as a co-conspirator. Like, honestly, and it's only because Andy had copied them into an email because we were setting something up for some Japanese lawmakers. So that just shows you how ludicrous the thing is. I don't know why it is, but the CCP has to have like a big bad boss. It's like, you have to have a Bowser. You have to have a character who's like the final boss level. And they've decided that that's Jimmy. I don't know why, but they've decided that it's him. So they're trying to pin the whole thing on him. They're trying to pin our work to some degree on him. It's all made up. It's all made up. And I find the whole thing, I can't laugh at it. I can't laugh at it because there's too much suffering involved in it. But it is like, we would say it's like Alice through the looking glass. It's like a completely invented, bizarre world. It's weird to me to think that in a serious court, or what should be a serious court in Hong Kong, they're going through my text messages to Jimmy Lai.
Please retweet.
Please RT. What's RT? It's like, yeah, this is a really serious crime, clearly. I mean, honestly.
Worse, more ludicrous things have happened in China, but that is just, whenever I hear stories like that, it makes me, it kind of makes my blood boil. It's just, why are some people in Taiwan so eager to give up Taiwan's sovereignty just because we like the what we call like economic fruits that it's, I feel like it's so.
Do you think that's the case? Do you think there are a lot of people who would support that in Taiwan?
A good number of them. Maybe I'm not. There's no. I can't back this up with statistics, but I'm guessing at least a quarter of Taiwan's population would be happy for closer ties with China for the economic benefits. Yeah. Yeah. Which is actually not a bad news because the number used to be much higher.
Sure.
Yeah.
It depends on the question you ask. So we found this with Brexit, right? There was a big argument over what the question would be. They were going to say, do you want to leave the European Union, yes or no? And then they had a big fight about this because the no side thought that it's much less likely in a referendum that people will vote no.
You want to stay.
So they changed the question. The question was, would you like to leave or remain in the European Union? So then it became vote leave or vote remain. The question really matters, and this is why I'm zeroing in on it, because from the way that I read the statistics about public opinion in Taiwan, I think if you were to propose to the people of Taiwan one country, two systems as Beijing envisages it, I think over 90% would say no.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But even the family that I come from, they are very proud of their Chinese identity, which that's a whole different story. Speaking of China,
and they should be. You know, of their shared heritage.
I am ethnically Chinese, but that doesn't mean I want to hold a CCP passport. I don't ever want to. The only passport that I want to have, that I want to travel the world with, is my green little Taiwanese passport.
Sure,
not
I get that.
Anything else.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, I want to talk about the big elephant in the room, being China's ethnic unity and progress promotion law. On paper, it sounds harmless enough. No, unity. We like unity, do we not? But critics argue that the law's language is just so broad and so vague that it effectively gives Beijing a legal basis to intervene wherever and whenever it claims ethnic unity is at stake. Is that a fair assessment of the law?
Yes. So this follows a pattern that I think we've seen in the past few years, as I think the CCP's insecurities have got wilder, they have sought to try to expand their competence beyond their own jurisdiction even more. So, you know, the Hong Kong National Security Law does this. It claims to have application all over the world, you know, as if the CCP can govern the law of other people's countries. It's just, the whole thing is a ludicrous idea, but they've denuded themselves into thinking that. So this is the latest iteration of that. I think the difficulty with this is that it's predicated on a notion of what it means to be Chinese, which is not reflected by the Chinese people, which obviously has a great deal of diversity within it. That whole kernel of what people would call Han chauvinism or Han supremacism, having found its way into expression, legal expression, should worry us all, because I think it codifies a trend which wasn't there that strongly like 10, 15 years ago. Don't get me wrong, there's been persecution throughout that period of time, of course. But it wasn't there in the same way. So openly expressed and now codified in law, you know, in order to basically eradicate diversity.
I've never heard that term you used just now, Han chauvinism, but that's such a good way of putting it. Speaking of codifying it into law, how, from your perspective, how concerned should people in Taiwan and democracies around the world be about this law?
So I don't want to alarm people, because Beijing does stuff like this, and it's recognized, I think, by every other country as like a really ridiculous overstep.
It is.
But you have to acknowledge, unfortunately, that Chinese interference is getting much worse. Chinese transnational repression, basically bullying people overseas, is getting much worse.
Yes.
The persuasion to return operations, where they use people's families to force people to come home so they can prosecute them, is getting worse. All of these tactics are getting worse. And against that backdrop, there are risks, right? There are risks. So, for example, when I was named in Andy Lee's case, the UK Foreign Office pulled me in and said, we don't really understand how the Hong Kong national security law works. But what we do know is that you might be vulnerable to criminal charges. So don't go to any place that has an extradition agreement with China or with Hong Kong.
Even for you?
Yeah. So I'm like...
A UK lawmaker?
Yeah, so this is like 53 countries, yeah. So, which includes France, includes Italy. So they say...
Thailand even. Like it's,
Thailand,
yeah.
And Thailand would worry me now, seriously. So I am in a very privileged position in the sense that I hold a UK passport. I am not like a dissident from China who's moved to the UK, or a Hong Konger who's on a B&O visa or whatever. Those guys are very exposed. And if they find themselves going to third countries which are very close to China, who want to help them hound dissidents under this ethnic unity law, that is a real prospect that I don't think we should dismiss.
I'm still reeling from the fact that even you suffer from what the Foreign Office told you. People in Taiwan, like me, like a lot of people in Taiwan, we know not to travel. Like we will never, like go to Hong Kong like ever again, just because it's not safe. We don't even fly Cathay because I think it's like Hong Kong owner operated.
It is.
And so, so being on that aircraft carrier, like not aircraft, I'm sorry, being on that aircraft, it's just we're just exposed. And I thought it was just us, you know, the renegade Taiwanese people. I didn't realize even for a British MP, you would be exposed so greatly as well.
So the problem is that the UK government can't do a great deal about it if something goes wrong.
Really?
Yeah, so they can do, well, look at Jimmy Lai. He's a British citizen. Have they succeeded in getting Jimmy Lai out? No. He's been a priority, so-called, for the UK government for years. And what have they managed to do to make his treatment better? It doesn't say much for the weight and power of the UK government. So if there were a third country where the relationship with China was such that they might enable the hounding of other people, then I wouldn't put it past them. We know that China has misused Interpol to go after various people. It's possible. However, it's not likely. Yeah. So one of the countries that has an extradition agreement with China is France. I've been to France. There's not going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen, and it would be such a massive escalation if they were to do it, that it would be a very stupid thing to do. So I enjoy protections that dissidents don't have. You shouldn't compare me with those guys. Those guys are really exposed, and this law is targeting them more than it's targeting people like me. That's what's worrying about it. Governments have not done a good job in standing up for those people who are particularly exposed because of this kind of transnational repression.
Is the UK government doing a good job?
I don't think so, no. I think that we've gone backwards on China. I think that even though there is a parliamentary consensus on China, and that's gone in the right direction, the government is in a different place. And that's partly because it was designed by some people from the golden era of relations with China, so like 15 years ago. But our policy is not very realistic in the sense that we're not really defending UK resilience, we're not preparing for possible escalation in cross-strait tensions, we're very dependent. All of these kinds of questions we're not handling right, in my view.
I remember one of the, Mike Pompeo, he gave a couple of speeches on China before Trump left office.
Yeah.
And one of those speeches just really stuck with me. He mentioned that in the golden era, people thought it was or even before that, people thought it was a great idea to engage with China. So China would get a chance to see what, capitalism is not all that bad, and we get to mingle, and then maybe our ideas of democracy would trickle down to China. It didn't happen.
Of course.
What happened was vice versa. China exported its ludicrous ideas, its communism in different forms to overseas, and it just shows how naive sometimes people's thinking can be when they write policies about China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's right. I think the problem is that we don't know enough about China, particularly in the West. We talk about this as the China capabilities problem. Like, not enough people have Chinese, not enough people understand the culture, certainly not the political culture, which is very difficult to read. We really don't have much in common in terms of our political cultures there. I'll give you an example about this. It's kind of funny. So have you been following this China mega embassy controversy in the UK?
Yes, for quite some time now.
Right. So
wait, it is getting built, right? Is it not?
No, we're going to stop it. Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm making a prediction here. We will stop it. So we are currently suing the UK government over that decision.
Right.
And I think we're going to win. But to the point about the political cultures, it's kind of funny. So the Chinese side, and I'm talking like Wang Yi himself, he thought
my favorite guy,
that the UK was just lying about the fact that we had processes to follow in order to approve the embassy. The Chinese side is like, you're ministers for a reason, can't you just do this? And our side is like, no, the way that UK planning law works is it's got to go to Tower Hamlets Council first, and it's got to do this, it's got to do that. So the Chinese side was growing progressively more and more frustrated because the notion that you would have checks and balances and other processes to go through is really alien to ministerial CCP culture.
Yep. Can you just make things happen?
You just make things happen. That's why you're a minister, But they actually thought that we weren't telling the truth about the processes. They thought that we just wanted to lead them on a dance about this embassy for years, So it's one of the reasons that it became such a tense diplomatic issue. And so very often there's not a huge amount of read across. We don't understand. And what that leads to is really bad China policy making. The real experts who are steeped in understanding about the history and development of the Chinese Communist Party would have told you back in 2001 what was going to happen, very clearly. Taiwanese would have told you what was going to happen. But we all fell for it. We all went with it. And it was a disastrous mistake. Now
that you mentioned Taiwan, and this which look, I don't need to explain Taiwanese political system to anyone watching. You're probably Taiwanese. Now that we're talking about Taiwan, both Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party and Taiwan's People Party have joined IPAC.
Yep.
Yet Taiwan's largest opposition party, the Kuomintang, remains notably absent. When Legislative Yuan President韩国瑜 led a cross-party delegation to the United Kingdom, you revealed that IPAC actually made several attempts to try to arrange a meeting with them in London, but those efforts were ultimately declined. And you've also said that IPAC invited the KMT to attend its annual summit on 3 separate occasions, and never once did you receive a response. Was that all true, what I said?
Pretty much, yeah.
What do you think explains the Kuomintang's reluctance to engage with IPAC?
So I think what I'd say, first of all, and it's important to underline this, I don't have any skin in the game here, in the sense that I don't vote for any of these people.
Well,
I'm not Taiwanese. I would be very open to discussions with the KMT. That's always been our position, and I've worked pretty hard in order to try to bring that about. You know, I want to have those discussions. And the reason we want to have those discussions is that the work that IPAC is doing internationally is mainly on the basis of other countries' interests, because people are really worried about this region. But we can't do that work accurately unless we're sure that what we're doing reflects the will of the people here. Where I've really struggled with the KMT is that these guys, they just don't seem to like me very much.
Okay. I wonder why.
But I do wonder why, because, you know, so the summit's a good example. When we were organizing this summit in Taipei, quite a big deal. You know, it was the largest group of international lawmakers that's ever come here. And I wanted to make sure that the legislative yuan was properly represented.
Of course.
So I started talking to the KMT, what must have been 6 months at least before it happened. They ghosted me. So then I wrote a letter to the president of the legislative yuan, Han Kuo-yu, and I said, hey, why don't you nominate a group, a cross-party group, whoever you want, I don't care, and send them to our summit.
As long as your presence here is.
Yeah, please go for it. No response. So then I asked the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, invite every member of the legislative yuan to our summit. They did. Not one single response from the KMT. So the thing that really, I mean, that's one thing, but the thing that was bad was that when the summit happened, the media then came and said to the KMT, are you boycotting this? And they said we weren't invited. And all I would say about that is that...
What was the response? We didn't know about this?
They said we were not invited. Okay, now I have put more effort into inviting the KMT than any other political party in the world, right? It wasn't correct, it wasn't accurate. So I found myself looking at that and thinking, okay, my struggle in doing this work is that I need to be able to speak to people candidly and honestly about challenges that we all face. That's my job, basically. If people are not going to be honest to me, I've got a real problem. I'm wanting to be able to talk to these guys. I don't care if they disagree with me or even disagree with IPAC. I don't even determine the whole of IPAC's policy. It's a consensus thing. But my network comprises the politicians who are most active on Taiwan around the world. So you should be talking to us. Like, it makes a lot of sense.
Is it rude and is it uncommon for someone to just ghost you like that?
Yeah, it's never happened to me.
Because normally we'd be like, I'm sorry, but we decline your invitation because of scheduling conflict. Yeah. They would make up an excuse for not being there, but they would just ghost you.
So people often come back saying, I can't make it.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get that a lot.
Yeah.
But no, so, I mean, I invited one of our US co-chairs, Senator Merkley, Democrat, to something recently, and very elegant note back, as you'd expect when you get a formal invitation to something, saying, I'm really sorry, I can't make it. No response at all is very unusual, but I could forgive that. The thing that I find difficult is saying, then you were not invited, because that's just false.
That's just lying, I'm sorry.
Well, and I want to be careful, because I don't want to throw around insults at people, but at the same time, I do think that, you know, your listeners have a right to know. There is an international network which is kind of like slogging it out to do what it can to help Taiwan. It's really working away. And I've never been treated like that by any other political party in the world. Never. So all I would say is, I'm here, I'm open to meet, delighted to meet. We're getting on very well with the TPP, by the way. And I really hope that someone in the KMT sees sense and is like, oh yeah, maybe we should be speaking to those guys.
今天是第2集宵夜进来讲的，先到这边，好，明天我一样会继续的访问 Luke de Pulford， 他是 IPAC 的创办人、执行董事。那我会请教他一个问题，就是我们知道 IPAC 在做一些蛮厉害的事情，我们知道有些大人物会，你知道，也许有钱出钱，有力出力嘛，哈。那我们不是人人都有坐拥金山银山，可以说，哎呀，我支持你的这个理念，来，我捐个掏个几万几百万出来，我们就是办不到。这样子渺小的我们，你、我们大家，我们能为我们的国家，我们能为我们说真的拥抱我们，让我们可以平安长大，让我们安全发表、畅所欲言的这样子社会的这样的民主 ，What can we do？ 我们能做什么呢？其实正在看这个节目的你，以及正在主持的我们就在做，我觉得是对的事。为什么会这样？为什么会这样讲呢？首先，明天的宵夜进来讲。